Animals don't need to be friendly for them to be respected or worth compassion. I mean, a lot of these animals, almost all animals that we deal with, are prey to humans, right? And so why wouldn't they be afraid? And a very common reaction to fear is to be a little bit more protective. And so if we ever have a rooster or a chicken or a dog or a squirrel, heck, even,
Mhm.
show signs that some people like to categorize as aggression, I always pause and think, like, if I were in their shoes, feet, how would I be feeling if there was this big towering possible predator, because you don't know for sure, coming at me, like, and not knowing the intention. And so, like, I just always like to say, like, even if a chicken has what some people categorize as like bad behavior or a bad personality, they're still worth they're still worthy of compassion.
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
Our guest today is Liz Wheeler. Liz is a passionate advocate whose life's work is fostering compassion and understanding between humans and the animals who share our world. With a certificate in animal welfare from Thompson Rivers University and a certification of anthrozoology from the University of Windsor, she blends academic insight with deep empathy in her advocacy. Over the past 5 years, Liz has built a meaningful career in the nonprofit animal protection sector, contributing her skills to organizations including the Ottawa Humane Society, Humane Canada, and now Faunalytics, where she serves as philanthropy manager for the U.S. She is also the co-founder of Secondhand Stories Chicken Sanctuary, a haven that rescues and celebrates chickens while educating the public about their sentience, individuality, and inherent worth. Through hands-on care, community outreach, and policy engagement, Liz is guided by a steadfast belief that every small act of kindness moves us closer to a more compassionate world for all beings. Liz Wheeler, thank you for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us what inspired you to co-found Secondhand Stories Chicken Sanctuary. Just tell us how it all began.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like maybe like since the day I was born, I just feel like I've always been an animal lover. It's always just been a core aspect of my personality and how I've gone through the world. I mean, when I was younger, the only thing that would calm me down if I was upset was my mom saying, "Well, imagine like a pile of kittens on you." So if that's a good indication, I feel like my whole life has been building up to this. But really, I would say, as far as the chicken sanctuary specifically and chickens, it really has to be the moment that I went to another sanctuary and was able to hold and pet a chicken. And just my understanding of them completely changed. It completely changed. I always kind of assumed that they were a little bit standoffish, but the chicken that I met, Ellen, what was so beautiful and so wonderful, so soft. And from that moment, I was just like, oh, I'm a crazy chicken lady now. This is it.
Well, tell us about Ellen.
Oh gosh, yeah. So Ellen, she was rescued from the University of Guelph, I believe. I think that's the university. And she was one of the projects, I suppose you would say. I don't really like to refer to animals that way, but through their purpose, their eyes. And she was actually able to find a loving home. A lot of animals that are used in either scientific testing or laboratories aren't often able to find a second home, and she was. So she ended up at another sanctuary and just lived the rest of her life. She had birthday parties. She was so adored. And when we met her, we immediately, my partner and I, we started sponsoring her. We started volunteering as much as we could so we could go over and say hi to her and bring her some treats and blueberries and snacks. And she just really changed our whole worldview of every single living being being worthy and just capable of all of these emotions that we know that humans have. We saw it in her as well.
I think some people would be surprised about how unique chickens are. I know about 20 years ago, I was listening to NPR, maybe more than 20 years, and there was a guest talking about his pet chicken and all the little nuances and his personalities and quirks. And I was completely surprised. I was completely dumbfounded. I never really put that personality with the chicken. And I changed my mind that day. What are some of the things that you've learned about the personalities of chickens since you've started this sanctuary?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you asked that question because as I was hearing you talk, I was thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, like all of our chickens have such different personalities. And like when we met Ellen, we kind of just bunched them all into one group of being amazing and cute and cuddly. And we realized that they all just, they're so unique. Like, so right now we have 22 different rescued chickens. And no one is the same from another. Like some of them may be curious, a lot of them are curious, but some of them maybe are a little bit more hesitant to trust humans, are a little bit more um, laid back. For example, Ezra, who's one of our roosters, we kind of call him like the mascot of our sanctuary because he's so outgoing and so cuddly and demands to be picked up. So if you go into his run or his coop area and you sit down, he'll actually take one of his feet and put it up on your legs and be like, I would like to be picked up, please. He like asks and solicits attention. But then there's other chickens and like another rooster who's very similar to him. We have Hershey, and he's very, very friendly. Will let you pick him up, likes to be pet, but is a little bit more subdued into that and will kind of see what you're doing and kind of look around and let his hens eat first and is a very gentleman. And it's just so cute to see all their different personalities. I always explain it to people who have never met a chicken. I'm like, take all the good things about like dogs and toddlers, like human toddlers, put it together, and you have like the best animal ever.
You know, I have a dog. Her name is Sophie, and we're trying to get her some training right now because she's now an only dog and she's always been a little bit skittish and scared, and we've never really been able to work on that when we've had other pets. But anyway, I had a lady over yesterday who's going to be our dog sitter, and she also does Reiki, and she was basically reading Sophie's vibes. She goes, I pick up little old English lady vibes. And she says, I sense that she's irritated with me right now. It's like, why are we having another person in here analyzing me? And I just, I've been doing this a long time and I'm still struck with how easy it is sometimes as a human to overlook that everybody's very different. All animals are, just because you're a dog or a chicken, we can't put any of us into that category, even, or like we do with humans, even. It's like, no, they're all very different and they all deserve to have their personalities and they all deserve the space in order to let that shine, I guess, where some want to, retreat, others need to go, excuse me, I'm head rooster and I need to be picked up.
It's so true. And like, especially when you think about roosters too, like most of our roosters are friendly, but we do have a couple that don't really like to interact with humans. And I think it's so important for us to recognize that that's okay. Animals don't need to be friendly for them to be respected or worth compassion. I mean, a lot of these animals, almost all animals that we deal with are prey to humans, right? And so why wouldn't they be afraid? And a very common reaction to fear is to be a little bit more protective. And so if we ever have a rooster or a chicken or a dog or a squirrel, heck, even,
Mm-hmm.
show signs that some people like to categorize as aggression, I always pause and think, like, if I were in their shoes, feet, how would I be feeling if there was this big towering possible predator, because you don't know for sure, coming at me, like, and not knowing the intention. And so, like, I just always like to say, like, even if a chicken has what some people categorize as like bad behavior or a bad personality, they're still they're still worthy of compassion.
100%. Just as people are, no
Mhm.
different.
Exactly.
Is your sanctuary open to the public?
Our sanctuary is open to the public, but we ask that people book tours. So we're not open in the way that like many businesses are with a set schedule. So for us, we ask people to book tours on the website before coming here. But yeah, we love having people come visit the chickens. The chickens get so much joy out of it. They're very, very social. And of course, it means they get extra treats. So they're very happy to have extra blueberries.
Do you fundraise through these tours, or are you looking to, how do you sustain yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, we do ask that people make a donation when they come for a tour, but it's not mandatory. One of the things that we try and be really cognizant of is, especially being a sanctuary that's in a rural setting, there's already a barrier for people to come visit us. Like if they don't have access to a vehicle, if they can't afford the gas to come out, that's already a barrier. And so we suggest a donation, but if somebody can't financially afford it, we don't want that to stop them from being able to come and meet the chickens and interact with them and learn about chickens, especially if we're talking about somebody who's never met them before and is curious about that dynamic and maybe looking to maybe possibly shift their diet change. We never want cost to be a barrier. So the primary, like the main way that we fundraise is through individual donations. It's through individuals who either are part of what we call our Kind Friends Club. So we have a monthly donor program where people can sponsor chickens. And then we also have biannual auctions. Or biannual, I guess, twice annual, we run an auction online where we get amazing small businesses and businesses across Canada and even the United States to donate items and then auction that off. That helps support our fundraising. We have some small businesses that just choose to donate a portion of their funds. So yeah, it's all over the place. We are applying to some grants, but in Canada, we're not yet a registered charity. We've applied for our charity status. And gosh, if you want to talk about that, there's a whole story behind how hard it is for Canadian farm sanctuaries to get charitable status. Um, but yeah, we get some grants as well that we're very, very lucky to receive.
Well, I'm sure it's arduous, but I have I count that I'm sure that you're going to get it because you know how to work the process, and it'll be
Yeah,
worth it.
we're really, really lucky. We're working with an amazing organization called AEL Advocacy in Canada, and they've helped us with our charitable application. One of the things that we're trying to do is actually improve the Charity Act. So, right now in Canada, to apply as a farm sanctuary, you can't get charitable status unless you meet a very, very narrow parameter of restrictions. And one of them has to be that you have to have an education programming requirement. And so that's usually tours or going into classrooms. And while we do that, it's not the core focus of what we do. We do a lot of advocacy, and there's a bunch of restrictions, like you can't speak negatively about the farming sector, you can't intercept the food system. Your mission basically can't have the word vegan in it because that's not considered for the quote unquote public benefit. So there's a lot of restrictions. So we're going in with AEL advocacy and actually trying to challenge a little bit and have our charitable reason be for the betterment of like the better good of society, because there is a need for surrendering chickens because there isn't another place for them to go. A lot of humane societies don't take them up here.
Are you allowed to say plant-based?
So it can be dietary in focus, but I do not believe that it can be very specific about switching a diet from one to another. So that can be a portion of your charitable work, but it can't be it in its entirety.
So your main purpose is to house the chickens that you have, accommodate others as room allows, and to give them a life that they deserve to have.
Yeah, that's part of it. We have like three core program areas, and one is education. So our mission is to inspire compassion for chickens through rescue, being our primary purpose, education and advocacy. So not only do we take in the limited amount of chickens that we can, I mean, 22 it seems like a lot to some and then not a lot to others. I wish that we could take more, but we do operate under a very similar to shelters, a capacity for care model. So how many can we reasonably give the best quality of life possible to with our current resources. And then also with the education, yes, we do tours, but I also work at Faunalytics, right? I have a full-time job. And so while the sanctuary is another full-time job, well, a full-time volunteer job, it is limiting in how much we can do. We can't do tours like every day of the week. So
I understand.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Liz Wheeler of Secondhand Stories Chicken Sanctuaries. So talk about Faunalytics. I think this is such a wonderful service to be able to provide the data that the advocates need in order to move forward. What is your role with Faunalytics?
oh my gosh, I am so lucky. I truly have my dream job. I love Faunalytics so much. Before I started working there, I used it all the time in my personal advocacy. And I'm just so lucky. I never thought they would hire a Canadian, but it turns out half of our team is Canadian. So that's very, very lucky for me. But for those who are listening who don't know about Faunalytics, we are an organization that conducts and shares research for animal advocates. So we help you with your tactics, messages, strategies in any area of animal advocacy. So that can be it can be something like animals used in food, animals used in entertainment, companion animals, animals used in science. And so part of the work that we have is this amazing research library. It's about, I mean, we're over 6,000 study summaries now, which is completely wild to me. And so I'm just so lucky. Like I do philanthropy, so I do fundraising at Faunalytics. But yeah, I'm always on that library, always looking stuff up. There's so many resources for chickens. So definitely like anybody who's listening to this who has a sanctuary, there's like a research roundup specifically for sanctuaries, which is incredible. It covers like the best research out there for fundraising, for volunteers, for animal care. And yeah, I love it.
Can you give us some of your favorite resources as far as what's really helped you, perhaps through this job, to help you with Secondhand Stories Chicken Sanctuary?
Oh my gosh, I think definitely like it would seem like I would probably be like going for the chicken specific material on the website, but actually I use a lot of our original research studies in the best like tactics and messaging to reach folks. So like what kind of language are we using? What kind of social media posts are we putting out there? How are we approaching different audiences? And I guess like the main thing that I've learned is it's no one size fits all. And so anytime we're making like a social media post, for example, I'm always cognizant to think of like, okay, who is on Instagram or who is on TikTok or who is getting newsletters that's not on social media. So I'm always customizing what I'm writing or how I'm speaking to different audiences. And I think that's something that's really helped us grow. I mean, Secondhand Stories as a nonprofit actually started as a bookshop. A lot of folks are like very confused when I say that, but basically when we met Ellen at this other sanctuary, we started selling secondhand books and donating the proceeds to this other farm sanctuary. We managed to raise and donate over $25,000 Canadian to this other farm sanctuary. And so I just, I think our audience is primarily book lovers. It's not necessarily folks that follow because we have rescued chickens, right? We have this weirdly captive audience that's like, I came for the books, but oh, these are kind of cute chickens. Like let's watch this. And so we're always really mindful about the language that we're using, especially on our Instagram page, which is where the whole thing started. And Faunalytics has been such a gold mine for that, is like looking at, okay, what are the best strategies for reaching these folks and potentially, I wouldn't say like converting them to veganism, but opening their minds to being more compassionate to all animals. And of course, if they went vegan, that's cool too.
It's just wonderful that you have both situations that you can test one out and see how they're working, in lifetime. That's wonderful. I bet all sanctuaries could benefit from that, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they're like, for like a real life example, gosh, I think it's been more than a couple months now, but we released a study looking at the most effective ways to like talk to different politicians and like campaigners, effective communication with political staffers. And we used that when we were doing our advocacy for, I mean, not for, but I guess suppose against backyard chickens. And it's not that we don't want people to have backyard chickens. We just want the bylaws, the municipal bylaws that are in place to really protect the chickens and have good governance to make sure that like there aren't going to be any risks of predators, and that people are going to have like specific rules and regulations that they have to follow to make sure that these chickens are safe and well cared for. And one of the insights that we gained from that was it's really important to understand the political structure before you talk to a politician or a policymaker. You want to understand what the process is so that you're well informed, so you can go in at the proper stage. At least that's what I gained from it. And when we put that into practice, it was actually extremely effective because we were able to talk to Toronto City Council and also Smith Falls City Council, and essentially create these reports and give this information on why they should create stronger bylaws to protect chickens, and not only what was at risk to the chickens, but to public health. And that approach really, really helped and was taken very well.
If you could shift one common mindset about farm animals overnight, what would it be?
Well, that's a good one. One common mindset. Gosh. I think maybe like the idea that chickens are just so easily replaceable. I mean, we know that chickens are like some of the most consumed animals. It's like this thing called the small body problem, right? It's as people reduce their, let's say, cow intake, they then consume more chickens in place of that meal. And so I would think that maybe having people realize just like the intrinsic value of chickens. I live in a very rural area, as I think most sanctuaries do. That's how we're able to have the space and the land we need to rescue animals. And I grew up in the city, and so coming out to the country was a bit of a culture shock because it's very common for vets or people at the feed store where we buy our food for the chickens to say, oh, well, why would you treat them? You could just buy one for $2, or like there's just no value assigned to chickens because they're seen as so easily replaceable. And so I think like if I could alter people's mindsets to see that like each chicken isn't an individual and therefore deserves like proper recognition, I would suppose is the easiest way to say it, like recognition of their sentience, that they are an individual and that, they aren't just $2. I think that would go a long way in shifting social norms and having people just understand that, yeah, they have sentience, they deserve respect.
It seems very distorted that a living being like a chicken would only have a value of $2 to begin with.
Yeah.
It's just so sad on so many levels. Well, looking forward to the future, what is your vision for a more compassionate world for animals, and how can each one of us help create it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do think, I mean, I feel very lucky to be in the position that I am because one, I live in Canada, which I think is a wonderful place for folks to have compassion. That being said, Canada has some of the worst animal protection laws. Some of our animal protection laws are worse than the United States. So, seeing it from like a Canadian context, here folks tend to have like this idea that we're like better than some of the rest of the world. And I'd really like to just like shake up Canada and be like, no, 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 we're not that great. Like we have a lot of problems here. So I think like just speaking, I guess, from like a Canadian context specifically, I'd love to see more support for farmed sanctuaries overall. In Canada, there's only something like less than 70 sanctuaries across all of Canada. And in that, less than half have their charitable status because it's that hard to get. I think that some folks may be hesitant to support sanctuaries because they don't see like that dollar per animal. Like you look at amazing organizations like the Humane League, and I love them. I think they're doing fantastic work. I volunteered with them before. I'll always support them. But it's really hard to convince like funders or grantors to say like, hey, like we do X amount of work per dollar. But I do think it's important for folks to see and recognize like with sanctuaries, our effectiveness is so much more than just the animals that we save. For us, it's not just 22 animals that we've managed to help. It's every person who's come for a tour, people who are looking at our social media and maybe thinking, oh, you know what? I'm not going to have eggs tonight because I just saw like this really gross photo of a chicken laying an egg. We don't actually post like graphic imagery, but sometimes when our chicken lays a funky egg, we'll post it and people will be like, that's gross. And then they won't do it. So I think just giving sanctuaries a little bit more recognition is something I would really, really love to see, especially in Canada. It's so hard.
Because what I'm hearing is there's about 35 that
There's
actually,
70 operating in Canada that we've been able to find. So we have a list of them because we try and like collaborate as much as possible. And big shout out to Happily Ever Esther Farm Sanctuary. They're amazing. They have helped us so much. Like truly, they set us up with an amazing vet that's helped us with implants. And so like just collaborating with other sanctuaries has been like so incredible. But yeah, there's only I think 31 out of like more than 70 that have or around 70 that have their charitable status. And so that just goes to show like how much sanctuaries in Canada are really struggling. Because with the limitation of not having charitable status, obviously it's harder to get donations because a lot of people want tax receipts when they donate, want like the assurity of like transparency and governance, but it's really, really hard to meet the very strict requirements.
do you think if these requirements were softened that you'd have more sanctuaries? Because that just does not sound like a lot of sanctuaries for the space that is Canada.
Yeah, I know, right? Because there's so
Yeah.
vast. Yeah, I do think so. I think also just like more support in general. I mean, I would say for the sanctuary movement, most of the funding, at least in Canada, comes from individual donors. We're also in Canada, we have a very limited scope of grantors that are based in Canada or who will give to Canadian, even Canadian charities, let alone non-Canadian, like non-charities in Canada. So I think, yeah, like individual donors have always been kind of like the community, the village that we rely on. But there could be so much good that could be done with grants if given to sanctuaries in Canada. I think we have our population, when polled, is very against animal cruelty, more so than in other nations. And so having sanctuaries at the forefront, being able to show that alternative and show, okay, you don't like the idea of factory farming, but this is what it could be like if you considered shifting some of your dietary choices, and this is what chickens enjoy doing. Like, this is the life they could live versus this is what the industry standard is. And so I mean, there are some organizations that give grants. We're really lucky. We got a grant from the Pollination Project, which is allowing us now to do this project on our social media called What the Flock Friday. And so every Friday, we share a really shocking statistic about egg and chicken farming in Canada specifically, and just how people think like it's all rosy, like we have these rose-colored glasses, and it's like, no, 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 like chickens are actually treated terribly in Canada. Like we're behind the US in caring for chickens in farming. So like, no, 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 we're not good.
Well, that's not saying much, Liz.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not good here either. Not good here either. Well, it has been delightful talking to you. I've got so much information and so much insight into what you're doing here in Canada. I love the way your sanctuary started and all the good work that you're doing. And I love the idea of expanding the world of sanctuaries and the awareness, because that's really where people get that opportunity to see animals as they actually are. Because we don't have, if they're not a cat or a dog, we don't know who they are, especially like you said, if you grew up in the city, so it's essential work in this, I believe, in this movement towards compassion for everyone.
Yep.
Please tell us how we can find you and how we can support you, Liz.
Yeah, so you can check us out on our website. It's just secondhandstories.ca. And then on Instagram, that's probably the kind of platform that we use the most, is Secondhand Stories with an underscore at the end of it.
Excellent. Thank you again, Liz. This has been Liz Wheeler of Secondhand Stories Chicken Sanctuary, and I'm Cheryl Moss. This is Better Life for Animals. And if you have enjoyed today's podcast, please like and subscribe so that we can create a better life for animals.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.